Hello and welcome to Cash Chats, the podcast from Be Clever With Your Cash that takes you through some of the biggest money stories of the week. I'm Amelia Murray.
And I'm Andy Webb. Some of the stories we're covering in Your Money this week include price hikes for broadband plus possible EE refunds. We're looking at the premium that you might be paying for those food delivery boxes. Plus, there is a new meal deal from Poundland. Spoiler, it doesn't cost £1, but we'll take you through that and much more.
We'll also be sharing this week's successes from you guys, the community. It's episode 388 of Cash Chats. So this week the headlines have been dominated by political promises ahead of the election, which we'll cover closer to the time. But for today, what story are we starting with?
So let's kick off, excuse the pun, around Premier League season tickets. Because the football season has literally just finished. Well, almost finished. We've still got the FA Cup and European stuff. And then obviously we've got the European Championships as well next month. But football's finished, right, for the year. And already there's a new story talking about next season. This is a survey from BBC Sport. They spoke to fans from 15 of the 20 clubs about how much season tickets were costing, how much more they were going up. And they found that most people said they would be paying more next season for those season tickets. And of that, 25% said the amount they're paying was quite poor value, because I think we're having quite a few examples here where those hikes have been quite significant as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a football fan, soz guys, but I am interested in the economics of football, which is useful as we're talking about it. But I do remember a few years ago, my boyfriend is an Arsenal fan, and I was like, I'll surprise him with some tickets a couple of years ago. And yeah, I remember like just shutting down the window immediately because they were like more than £200 each. And I was like, oh my God, we go on holiday for this. Like, this is insane. But yeah, I mean, it is expensive, but it is important to people. And what I've kind of seen examples of it is the fans pushing back. So with Fulham, like I've seen the fans, showing these yellow cards saying, please don't price us out. And Wolves fans have been calling for boycotts. And if you look at the price here, Fulham has the most expensive non-corporate season ticket. It costs £3,000.
Yeah,
like,
it's massive.
Eye-watering. And like even the kids' tickets are expensive. So like Wolves have put up the price of under 14 tickets in one of the stands from £104 to £290. Like,
yeah, it's
to take your kid to football.
Yeah, I mean that is for a whole season, but I think the difference is it's about the increase in how much more things are getting and that availability of cheaper tickets. You talked about that people being priced out of it, becoming more and more elitist. If you want to be able to afford not just one match ticket, like you say, 200 quid, if you can even get your hands on one, but 200 quid for a single ticket, you expand that over a whole season, it gets even more expensive. And there are conditions that some of the clubs have put into these as well about how often you have to attend the match. Like Man United, they were saying you have to go to 17 out of the 19 games or they'll take this away from you. You've got to remember with season tickets, some fans have had this for years and years and years and years and years and years. If they lose it, it's going to be almost impossible to get it back. So yeah, I think this is the real challenge here. It's how do you let fans still go to this when the clubs are just fundamentally, they're just after trying to make as much money as they can wherever they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw something really sad as well, like Tottenham phasing out the 50% discount for over 65s. And there's this campaign group which is, basically saying it's basically telling older people like they're not welcome anymore. And, they're the ones who've probably been supporters since they were children and they've really kind of been there for the club and they've invested. So yeah, it made me feel really sad. But it's interesting because I was at the Building Society Association, whoop, whoop, their annual conference a couple of weeks ago. And I was talking to a woman at a credit union and she was saying, and again, it comes down to how people feel about football. And she was from Scotland and she says in this community in Scotland, like football is everything. People will go, they will put buying football tickets or season tickets or kind of investing in their club above essentials. And, they'll give up on, they'll cut back on food or kind of other important things to buy these tickets. And so what the credit union has done is it's introduced this like football financing where you can get a 0% loan. You pay it back in installments. You pay a one-off fee. I think it's about £30, but that applies to, however many season tickets that you want to buy. And yeah, because she was like, they're going to find a way to get these tickets anyway. So we thought we kind of support the community and the team like in kind of one go. But are there any other ways that kind of fans can make it more affordable for themselves,
Yeah.
if they're football fans.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because right now the reason we're talking about it is because clubs are saying that if you want a season ticket for next season, there will be a deadline where you've got to get it, renew your season ticket. So that's why it's now we're talking about it rather than when the season starts in August. And I think that 0% finance thing is going to be one thing to look at for a lot of people, because it means you can spread that cost out, and it could be a 0% purchase credit card that you're looking at. It could be a 0% overdraft. There aren't really many of those realistically. For one at scale, you're looking at Nationwide's Flex Direct account, and you can only get it once ever. So once you've done that, you're not going to get that again. But if you are going down that route, do just ensure that you can afford it over those months. Because still these things, as we've shown, particularly for Premier League matches, clubs can be very, very expensive. But try and spread that cost out if you can at 0%. You might be able to share the season ticket with someone, split the cost that way. And also, let's face it, I mean, I've had season tickets in the past for Crystal Palace, and it was great the first season we got promoted. But then after that, it's harder to commit year after year to keep going every single match, particularly with so many of them moves around now to like Mondays or Fridays or whatever it might be. So in theory, if you've got someone who you can share with, you go one week, they go the next, that will reduce the cost for you per match, but also overall. That's worth having a look at. And the other option is just seeing if your club allows you to sell back tickets for matches you can't go to. And you might even see that as a bit of a tactic. So, right, I'm going to buy the season ticket, so I'm guaranteed to get a seat, because it also, for Premier League teams, is often quite difficult to get a match ticket. So you've got it, you're locked in, but you know that you'll sell it back. And as long as your ground does sell out, there's a good chance you'll be able to get that money back, or at least for a small fee, lose it. And that still could work out cheaper per game overall. But do this by official channels. Not all of them will let you do this. And often you're not going to go for a season ticket if that's too expensive. I know we're talking a bit further ahead now, but do consider going for a membership. Now, you'll have to pay for this, but it means you'll get a ticket, and that means you will avoid, if you were to choose to go down that tout route, you'd avoid overpaying for games, because that membership should give you a better chance of getting a ticket. Or, this is what I do. Now I live in the north of England, and it's harder for me to go to home matches at Crystal Palace. I go to away games, and there is a price cap of £30 per ticket on away tickets. So I've been to Old Trafford, St James's Park, all these places which would charge so much more per ticket, but it just cost me 30 quid. Now, yes, they sometimes can be harder to get for the bigger games. You do need to have like a track record, at least with my club. I'm not sure how it quite works with others, but that's definitely something else you could be thinking about.
Good tips. Also, did you see that Crystal Palace is apparently one of the teams that wasn't raising prices? That's what fans were saying. Yeah, so there you go.
I'm proud of my club. I mean, don't get me wrong, things get more expensive places. Everyone has to. We've seen it with inflation. Everyone has to respond to that. But what you don't want people is to respond in a way that feels like you're being ripped off.
Which is an excellent segue into the next story. From one rip-off to another, we're going to talk about food delivery boxes. You've probably heard of them. We've got the Gusto or Gusto, however you want to say it, Mindful Chef, HelloFresh, Green Chef. They're basically the recipe and food boxes that you get delivered to your home in kind of portion sizes. They are designed, well, so they say, they're designed to kind of reduce waste and be more convenient for people who are busy, but they are possibly not the best value for money. So tell us more, Andy.
Yeah, so the reason we're talking about it this week is because The Guardian have, their journalists have crunched the numbers on those big brands that you mentioned just now to see exactly how much more they cost. What is the premium you're paying to get all those things sent to you, the exact amount of ingredients you need for that particular meal? And they found there was as much as 74% of the premium versus you buying it yourself, which is huge. You could be paying way more than you need to for the exact same ingredients. And we actually did that on Be Clever Your Cash earlier this year. Nikki, who's one of our writers, she's actually, in her past life, she was a nutritionist. So she's our kind of go-to person. She loves her money saving, but she also knows all about food. So she had a look in particular at HelloFresh and did a very, very similar thing that they did, and broke down a couple of the key recipes per portion, depending on how many you ordered, because it does vary then when these, the more you order, more meals and portions per order, the cheaper it gets. And also a kind of vegetarian and a meat dish as well. Compared how much that would cost you from HelloFresh and how much it would cost you. So rather than weighing it out for the exact same number of ingredients, which is what The Guardian's done for that 74% headline, it's the exact same amount of ingredients, did it for if you're buying all the ingredients, so which is probably slightly more realistic. Yes, we've got stuff left over, which you could use for other recipes. Yes, you might already have your pasta and your rice around there, but that's how she did it. And she found there were differences per portion between 30p and £1.75. So lower margins, a smaller difference between them, but still a difference. Still something that's going to be, I think, if you are someone who's getting these and isn't necessarily quite aware just how much more you're overpaying, again, these figures, both the Guardian sort of analysis and our own kind of investigation as well, it will really sort of should hopefully highlight to you that, okay, if you are going to go down these, just be aware you are overpaying, whether that's up to £1, £2, or potentially even more, if you really were going to make sure you did reuse all those other ingredients at other times.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had experiences with these boxes before. So years ago, before they were popular, I think I had a free trial. And I just remember being like, well, it was free, so it wasn't a kind of a matter of the price. But I realized I just didn't have time to do them. I mean, I was in my 20s, I was out all the time. And because you're getting fresh ingredients, you kind of have to make the time to be able to be in to eat them and cook them and all that kind of thing. So I was just like, oh God, this is just not for me, because sometimes, I might have an impromptu thing after work or whatever. So I'm not actually home enough in a kind of consistent way to make the most of it. And then I tried it again a couple of years ago. And I think it's really good if you want to kind of try new recipes. It was quite good for kind of, doing things I hadn't cooked before. But it is expensive, even with kind of discounts. I tried it on a discount, but I was like, it's definitely more expensive than what I would be spending anyway. So if I cook, I want leftovers for lunch the next day. I might want leftovers later on in the week. So I'm probably cooking about 6 portions in one. I don't cook too much that I get bored and I'm eating the same thing every day. But I like to have stuff in the fridge that I can kind of rotate, so I don't have to kind of be bothered. I can eat healthy all the time. So when I tried it, I was like, oh, great. There's 2 portions. And yes, they were delicious. And yes, they were a bit expensive, but it's kind of a treat. But then I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to cook. I have to forage for lunch tomorrow. Like, this is, it's kind of, it's nice as a treat for kind of different reasons. And I think, if you are busy, like there's some people I know who love them, like they'll get them weekly and that's how they cook and that's how they kind of have dinner. But if you do love them because you're busy and you like the convenience, are there any tips for cutting the cost?
Yeah, I mean, just on what you're saying there as well, I think for a lot of people, they do see this as a convenience thing. They are busy and they don't necessarily want to kind of have to think ahead of what they're doing too much, and they want to try new things. And I think, as you say, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be doing if this is your kind of substitute for the other things that people do when they're busy and they haven't got time to cook, which is maybe to buy probably a relatively expensive and probably less healthy takeaway. So this sense, if you aren't, as long as you're not doubling up, thinking, oh, I'll do this instead of a takeaway, but then also going to take away, then this could be a good thing for that little bit of variety, that little bit of convenience, once a week, whatever it might be, knowing you'll pay more for it than if you did it yourself, but you're aware of that, okay? So that's something I think there's definitely a mindset thing here to be aware of. If you're going to do these, yes, you're paying more, and it should be kind of part of really understanding that difference. Because again, Nikki, when she did look at these different recipes, there are so many good recipes out there you could do which are healthy and nutritious and tasty and simple and cheap that really could bring down the costs even more. So I certainly would say the tip is like just really think about if you need to have them, and if you're having them, rationalize why you're doing them, and if you rationalize it, then that's great. And if you are going to stick with them, the way to save money are more boxes when you order, more portions. That does lower the price per portion, but you have that problem, as you were saying, Amelia, that if you are a bit more flexible, if you're not sure what you're doing, then you don't want those things to go to waste. Certainly, if you're a vegetarian, you are going to be particularly overpaying here. So there may be another reason to think differently about them if you're a vegetarian. But if you are someone who does eat meat or fish, try and order more of those because you will get more value for money there. And do look for those, not just the welcome offers, but also the welcome back offers. So maybe pause. Trick we give with subscriptions all the time. Doesn't always work, but you can cancel it and then see if in a month's time they say, actually, if you come back, we give you more money off those boxes. We've actually got over on the website a deal stack that I've shared with you. And it does vary how much you do, but I think this is if you haven't done this before and you want to try them, this is the best way to do it. It's not to get a voucher from your mate. You say, oh, look, you get 50% off your first box. I get 50% off. That's great for them. But for you, you can beat it that first time. And the way to do this is to go via a cashback site such as Top Cashback or Quidco. The offers do vary between the sites, but go to those because not only will you get a similar discount off your first box, you'll also get a lump sum off that as well. And if you're new to either of those sites as well, there were welcome offers. Again, we've got those listed on becleverwithyourcash.com as well, which could make the whole thing completely free. You might even get paid for them. But certainly if you're starting off for the first time, you could be easily getting sort of 90, 95% off that first box, at least just to give it a try, see what you think.
Great. And from one meal deal to another different type of meal deal, there's a new one from Poundland that cost just £3. Why are people talking about this?
This is one of the things that people get excited about, is just the meal deal. I remember when we had the price increases for Boots and for places in Tesco, when they announced that you're going to charge you more unless you have a club card. People do get a bit excited about it, and I think it's maybe less so now than it used to be. But when most of us were in an office 5 days a week, even if we were like myself bringing a packed lunch in most days, we still get the odd meal deal, and it's just part of British life. Is that you go to other countries, they don't necessarily have the same thing. They don't quite get it. It's a very sort of UK institution. So people are excited there's a new one, and you hear it from Poundland. And I know we've already told you it's £3, not £1, but still, that is a cheaper meal deal than you're going to see from most of the other chains. So yeah, I guess that's why people are excited. I mean, they've had a long list of everything that's included. It looks pretty, decent in terms of what's available. There's like 200 drinks listed. I have, not that I go to Poundland that often, but there aren't 200 drinks available when I've gone into a Poundland. So I think it's going to vary by store what's there. I'm sure it might change time to time, which a lot of their products, often do. Yeah, if you've got a Poundland near you and you want a meal deal, check it out, see if you want it. I mean, do you ever get meal deals? Is it something you've ever been into?
They're like an emergency purchase.
Well,
Like if I'm out and I'm starving and it's like I don't need to sit down and I'm not going to go sit down somewhere because I'm probably en route. I might get one, and I still do opt for the Tesco one with my club card, and I don't mind because I like seeing the prices rack up of each individual
yeah.
item and then seeing how much less I'm paying. It gives me a little thrill. I'm into it. So I do, but I am interested in like the Poundland one because I mean, it said in the article that they're good quality. Apparently, like it's the same people behind, kind of Marks and Spencer kind of products. So they're good quality. And I thought the same thing. I was like 200 drinks. I was like, where are they going to put them all? No. But I guess it's an interesting space as well for Poundland to move into because I have got a Poundland near me. And I do pop in for my bits, which I know I can get cheaper in Poundland than elsewhere. But I remember living in London and there aren't that many Poundlands, if any, in the city. So they are, they're in kind of towns and they're outside of the city of London. So in terms of like moving into grab and go culture, I'm just like, ooh, who is gonna be into this? Is it
Yeah.
your busy people at the weekend, or kind of like in Brighton where I am, just kind of people who are working locally. So yeah, if anyone tries it, do get in touch because I'd like to know how they are.
Yeah, I think this is the thing, the £3 price point will make it, out of the leading ones anyway, will make it one of the cheaper options for you. But a couple of things there that I want to suggest on that one. One, don't forget, if you can make your own sandwich and take it in with you, or buy a multi-pack of crisps and bring in one a day or whatever along with it, that will work out cheaper. Similar to what we were just talking about with those recipe boxes, it's still going to be cheaper to do it yourself, even though this is less than the other places. But also, I used to do similar to what you were saying there. I used to enjoy when I did get one, seeing the saving I could get, and I would look at what was available, and I'd get that triple sandwich rather than the double sandwich, and I'd get the posh smoothie rather than the water or whatever it might be, and the posher crisps. They weren't necessarily things that I wanted. I didn't necessarily want a triple sandwich, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to get the best value for money. I'm going to save the most money I can from this meal deal, and I've won. Great. What I do now is I just have a look at what I fancy, and if it's more expensive than a meal deal, then maybe I'll add a drink or add a snack or something like that. Because half the time, you might be saving money versus the full price. But if you just want a BLT and a bottle of water, just buy a BLT and a bottle of water, or even better, have a reusable bottle, and that'll work out cheaper still. So good news for meal deal fans, but still try and think a bit smarter about it if you really want to get the best value for your money.
Well, yeah, some good news perhaps for the summer. And as I said, yeah, try it and let us know how it is. But moving on to something perhaps a little less positive are the upcoming changes being made by Now to its broadband prices. So these are going to be hiked very soon from the 5th of July, and they're expecting to cost the average broadband customer an extra £36 a year. Andy, what else do people need to know?
Yeah, so we spoke previously on the pod about price increases for broadband, mobile, all these things. And most of the time they happen kind of in that kind of late March, early April, and they have historically been linked to inflation. So this one happening now in July is obviously a late one, unexpected one, or to be fair, they have done it previously around this time of year. But what is interesting about this is that they are, what now are doing is they're getting more in line with what Ofcom are likely to kind of say that all providers have to do at some point later this year. We've already seen BT do this earlier this year with this fixed price increase. So whereas those increases that we spoke about earlier in the year were generally a percentage, generally based on inflation plus a certain amount, this is a flat £3. No matter what level of broadband you have with NowTV, top of the range, cheapest one, maybe you've got a special deal, doesn't matter. You're paying £3 a month, £36 a year. Now, I had a quick look at the Now Broadband website, and generally, in the kind of the most of their packages are around £21. So adding £3 a month is a huge 14% increase. Now, that is way more than what it would have been if it had gone up with inflation. Back in April, which was around kind of, things were around about 8%. I think they mostly increases were then, and way more than what inflation is right now. The most latest figure there is 2.3%. So as I said before, when we spoke about the BT deal, I think this is bad. This is a bad sign for anyone when these increases are coming. I think we're going to see, when inflation is lower, generally lower increases than higher increases than we're used to. So things are going to get more expensive, and then it will compound the next year, and it will compound the next year. So we'll have to see what happens there. It might be all about, taking these opportunities when you're out of contract to haggle, switch around, try and get better deals, to try and bring it back down to something that is more affordable.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of, as you said, millions of customers have already seen price hikes with other providers. So BT, Sky, TalkTalk, Virgin Media, they kind of all have price hikes by up to sort of £50 a year in March and April. And I went on Now's website, and it's reflecting this in its explanation to customers around the latest hike. So it said that lots of other providers have raised their prices, so they're making changes too. And it's like, all right, now, like, follow the crowd, cool, good for you. But not all Now customers will see the rise. So if you've got Now Full Fibre 100 or the Broadband Basics, which is the social tariff for people who are on universal credit and other benefits, you're not going to see a hike either. But if you are one of the customers who are affected, what should they do?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to highlight what you said there about that, the universal credit package. Most providers offer something like this as well. So if you are on benefits, it's worth just seeing if you're available to swap to one of those with your existing provider or a different one. Watch out for exit penalties if they were to charge that for a different one, but that's definitely something to look at, which could save you some money. But this particular price increase, now you're going to get a letter. If you're with Now Broadband, you'll get a letter from them in the next few weeks. And within that, and this is quite rare, we don't see this very often anymore, they will give you the opportunity to cancel penalty-free if you do it within 31 days. So I think, use this as an opportunity. I said before, right, ditch it, shop around, covered it plenty of times over on the website and on the podcast before about how to do this, how to shop around, just see if you can get a better deal elsewhere. Don't forget to look for welcome offers, go via cashback sites that bring in those extra savings, because you should hopefully be able to bring your price down further. I don't know about haggling with Now, because they are often a little bit harder to get in touch with, at least on the TV streaming side of things. But I'm pretty sure they do have a phone line for the broadband. So again, you could try and haggle with them as well. So look, I'm going to leave. What can you do? Can you bring my price down? And if they don't beat the ones that you found elsewhere, then use that as an opportunity to move and save money.
Exactly. And for our next story, we're also looking at badly behaving telecoms companies, but this time they're making amends, and customers could actually be in line for a refund. So what's going on, Andy?
Yeah, so as I mentioned just now, normally if you were to leave a broadband company during your contract, you are going to get hit by a exit penalty, right? They're going to say, well, you've got to pay the rest of the contract, whether all of it or a small amount, whatever it might be, but they'll charge you for this. And that's generally how most contracts work. And PlusNet and EE, who are owned by BT, they didn't tell people about this. They didn't make it clear when new contracts came into play back in June of 2022 that was the case. So the regulator Ofcom have investigated this, and they've sort of told them that if someone has left PlusNet or EE, and this is not just a broadband, it's mobile, landline, and TV package as well, if they have left those companies, having joined since June 17, 2022, and subsequently being charged the exit penalties as well, then they could get those fees refunded. So it's not going to be everyone. You have to have signed up in the last 2 years pretty much and left and been charged. That they shouldn't have done that. They should have made it clear in those contracts, so you will get that money back. And they'll also potentially be for those of you who again haven't left BT, those EE or PlusNet in that time, but you also might have the opportunity to exit penalty free. Now, if you do want to shop around and find a better deal, because again, they should have told you about it. They should have made it clear, and they're going to start doing that. They're going to have to sort of issue new contracts saying, look, oh guys, this is the deal. So if you do it in the future, you will have to pay these exit penalties, because that is a change in contract. There's an opportunity for you to move on. So that could be quite an interesting one. Again, as we said with NowTV, if you are overpaying for any of those things or feel like you're overpaying, a chance to shop around.
I love when this stuff happens. It's like justice to the people. And so they're basically going, if you're an affected customer, you should be written to, and they're going to start proactively contacting people in the next few months. So just sit tight and wait for your letter. And if you don't hear anything in the next few months, contact EE on PlusNet's customer service. And you can do that on, special numbers on your mobile phone or through the usual channels. But next up, there's been some surprising research on holidays and what people are opting for this summer. So where are people going?
I mean, I think this is the fact that we know that people are still struggling. Prices are still so high. So this research from Go Compare has found that a third of Brits this year are planning on a staycation. And there's another 10% on top of that who are going to go camping here in the UK. So 4 in 10 Brits will be staying at home. And that's got to be down to the cost of things. Not cheap here either. But obviously, every country or most countries have seen these kind of increases that makes it just so much harder for people to jet away. Flights and hotels, I found, they particularly have gone up a lot.
Yeah, and I was reading something earlier about perhaps a fear around, well, not a fear. We've spoken quite a lot about the weather on this podcast, weirdly. But in terms of kind of climate change, like the weather has been getting warmer in the UK, which has made it more attractive. Also, it has affected in quite serious ways the weather in kind of more tropical climates. And I'm wondering if people are kind of a bit worried about that. And I'm also wondering, after the pandemic and kind of now it's a lot more, kind of an effort to go on holiday, and maybe there's like a bit of a residual fear about kind of getting stuck somewhere. If people are just like, actually, let's just not risk it this time. I mean, I keep telling myself, because I live in Brighton, I'm like, oh, Brighton's like a holiday destination in the summer, to basically make myself feel better about the lack of holidays I booked this year. Not because I want to go, but because, I haven't got around to it. But Brighton, holiday destination.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's spare cash, isn't it? You don't have as much money, so you can't afford to go to those other places, whether you want to or not. So if you do, literally stay at home, some of these things, you might not even be traveling around the country, you might just stay at your home. That will help you save some cash. I mean, I would say if you are feeling that the reason you aren't going abroad or planning to go abroad this year is money, obviously don't borrow if you haven't got the cash available to you. That's not a good idea to put it on a credit card and deal with it later on. But certainly, those classic things like leaving it late, seeing what last minute deals are around, you can sometimes still get pretty decent bargains that way. So you might be able to get way more for your money going down that route. Or maybe it's about, this year at home, save that money, don't spend as much, but maybe you can put it towards your budget next year so you can do something if that's what you want to be doing.
Exactly. Brill. And we're coming to the end of the show, but before we finish up for today, we want to give a shout out to some of the Be Clever with Your Cash community. So last week we asked for your recent successes, and there's been some really good ones. My favourite is from Anthony. Hi, Anthony. Who told us that he'd set up a direct debit for a bank switching deal. So I imagine he did kind of what we tell people to do, which is, set up like a small payment, regular payment, say to like a charity or something, just to kind of make sure that you can get the switching bonus. So he's done that with a local air ambulance lottery. Never expected anything to happen, but a couple of weeks ago got a letter saying he'd won the top prize of £1,000 and is now taking the family on a short break, which is amazing.
That's lovely. That's really good, isn't it? That's double the win. Yeah.
I love it. And then Sue and Vicky, they've both been notified about getting the nationwide fairer share payment. And Vicky's also done the £200 member switch. So that's like 300 quid in the space of a few weeks. And Oluwatobi says he's made £1,200 bank switching since October and is now helping his partner, who's already made £1,000. Woohoo! We should get like a nice sound for this section. But have you got any, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I love this when we do ask these questions. I used to on a monthly basis, and we're going to start doing it weekly now over in the Facebook groups. If you're not already a member, please do join us. It's becleverwithyourcash.com/community. But yeah, it's so lovely to see that when we're telling people about these bank switching deals, that they're doing them and they're winning them, and it's making a big difference to their lives. So we also had, in this particular post, bank switching successes from Bibin, Noreen, and Claire, and many, many more people have posted about those. So it's always lovely to hear about those. Instantly, just say about that nationwide fairer payment promo. We obviously covered it in the podcast briefly earlier in the week, and there was a whole video and article over on the YouTube channel at becleverwithyourcash.com. But if you do want to find out, it's a question that's popped up a few times that we've seen. If you do want to find out if you are eligible for this, then you either would have received an email or you can log into your app or the online banking and it will tell you. So if it's not there, then sadly it is likely you're going to miss out. But it's probably something I'm going to cover in the next monthly current account update that I'll do probably next week. A bit more information about that. So make sure you stay tuned for that. What else do we have? John managed to get cash back from Quidco when opening up current accounts with Santander and First Direct. And this is a really good reminder. If you are opening up a new current account, whether it's for a switching deal or for any other reason, just find out if you can get a little bit extra from those places. And I often will highlight them to you when we do analyze those bank switching deals. So yeah, at the moment, there is that Santander one that is still available. Sadly, First Direct are no longer on Quidco or Top Cashback. But TSB, that's the other one. If you're doing that switching deal, a little bit more money on top of that, which will really boost your returns. What else do we have? Katie says she stuck to her food budget for 2 weeks and avoided all takeaways, which is, I think, again, really great going there, because these are the things. Food is one of those things for a lot of people, myself included, where it's like, oh, that looks really nice, whether it's in a supermarket or a takeaway or a restaurant, and you're easy to overspend. So sticking to that, if you get into the habit of that, that's going to be a real difference to your budgets. And then we also had Paul, and he got £100 from Shawbrook after taking a cash ISA complaint to the Ombudsman. And we spoke about complaints just a few weeks ago with the problems that you've been having with your ISA transfer. So it's good to see, like, going to the Ombudsman. It's not something I've ever done personally, but it's good to see, okay, it might be a bit of admin faff, but ultimately he's got £100 and Shawbrook have been told off, which hopefully means they won't do it again.
And that's it for this week. So thank you all for joining us. If you want to read the articles we've spoken about today, you can find them at becleverwithyourcash.com or in the show notes.
We'll be back with another episode of the pod on Tuesday. So see you then.
Bye.